Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the podcast. You've got Mel from me, Bella, and this week we're in a totally new location. We're in Tisno for the festival. We've been in Zada for the last week. Well, since last Friday. We moved today. The weather is kind of windy and I'm kind of scared it's going to knock my camera over. We're just going to hope and pray for the best. But this week's podcast episode, we are going to discuss revisiting places. I guess, oh God, it is really quite windy. This podcast episode, we are going to discuss change and how much change can happen in such a short period of your life. Because the last time I visited Zada, I was 19 and I was filled with anxiety. I was so anxious about everything. I overthought every single possible thought. I overthought every interaction with every single person. And I also had no idea where I was going in my life. I had absolutely no clue. And I remember these thoughts of working out where I wanted to go and who I wanted to be just used to plague me. That used to be everything I would think about. And I just remember being really unhappy, thinking, this is my life and I don't like it, but I don't know how to change it. And I think going back to a place where I felt so like that, going back to a place where I felt so anxious, and I'm not going to lie, pretty miserable, revisiting it and then thinking about that time in my life, I was like, look how many things have changed. Look how much I've grown into the person I always wanted to be. Look how much my life has changed. Look how much the people I surround myself with has changed. Like, look how many of my elements of my life are different. And it was weirdly comforting because I think as someone who can be a little bit adverse to change, I can really focus in on the fact that things are changing and feel constant nostalgia for change and time that's gone by. And I think that is the most, terrifying thing to let go of something. Like when I was, it's kind of embarrassing to admit, when I was 7, and I think I've done this multiple Christmas years in a row. I've collected the pine cones and put them in freezer bags and dated them because I didn't want Christmas to be over, because I felt so nostalgic about the time that is passing and the fact that time is passing. And I think I've always had this weird need to cling on to things in my life. I've clinged on to the idea of what something could be because I'm so scared of letting it go, because I don't want to let something go because it shows me that time is passing and I can't comprehend that time is passing. And if I carry on looking back into the past, it makes me feel like time has paused, but the reality is I'm still wasting time. Time is still moving at the same rate, even when you're thinking about time that's gone. For some reason, when we think about time that's gone, because we stop recording in our own lives, it feels like it's paused, and that's actually not the case. And I think this unhealthy need for things in my life to be a certain way and stay a certain way, and this need to be nostalgic about certain things changing and kind of resenting that change, has then led me into situations where, I've focused so much on the fact that things are changing and that's sad, that I've forgotten about the fact that that change, so much in on that change and the fact that the change is happening, that it's made me forget so many other things that are going on in my life and made me not lean into it. Because I've started to realize more and more that swimming against the tide, not accepting that change is happening, is like swimming against the current. And we all know when you get pulled out to sea, you have to go with it, because any way you are swimming against the current is wasting your energy. Okay, you should just go with it, because eventually the tide will bring you back round. Eventually you'll come up, eventually the tide will settle and you'll feel settled in what you're doing. And I think that is so similar to things that is going on in our life, and especially dealing with change. We fight against it, we fight against it, we fight against it. We don't want these things to happen. And then all of a sudden, if we just let it go, if we just start using all that energy that we have to prepare for the change that is coming, if we start feeling excited about it, if we start using the way that we feel, I put hairspray in and it's gone awful. If we start using the way that change makes us feel to make us feel ready for the things that are coming, I think we manage to prepare ourselves so much more. And that is something that, there's a lot of change on the horizon of my life. About to enter another new chapter, and it's nerve-wracking. But for the first time ever, I'm not focusing so much on the fact that change is happening and, what am I letting go of? I'm really just trying to lean into it. Because I think we're wasting so much energy when we're trying to swim against the current. We're wasting so much energy trying to swim against the tide, and that's actually not helping things. But we've kind of gone straight into this week's podcast episode. We're going to come to the life update in the middle section, because I think this is one of those topics that it's weird coming back to somewhere you visited a year ago. I was literally in Tisno a year ago this weekend, and a year ago today, I was in Tisno, and so many things have changed in my life, but also so many things are the same. And I think it's realizing that there's big changes that happen. You leave your job, you move countries, you move homes, the big kind of pillars in our life. When they change, it kind of feels pretty massive. It feels pretty... But there's also the quieter, subtler changes that happen continually as we are. And I think it's only in the moments where we are faced with, facing our own reflection, looking in the mirror, and especially when you hit these big year milestones where you're doing something similar than you were the year before, you're forced to look at your reflection in the mirror and you think, you know what, there's actually been more subtle changes here than I realised. There's actually been more differences here than I first recognised. I've actually grown so much more than I initially thought. And I think coming here and looking at the person I am, It's been really interesting because not only have I been comparing myself to my 19-year-old self, I've also been comparing myself to my 24-year-old self. And I'll be honest, I did have a little bit of a meltdown about the fact that I was turning 25. It felt really scary. Oh, my boyfriend, we were like, I got a new Garmin watch for my birthday. I'd had the Apple Watch 6 years. It was time for it to go. Anyway, we were both looking at it and he was like, why is it putting your age as 25? And I was like, because I am 25. And he was like, I can't believe it. And I was like, don't. Neither can I. Because I feel like I blinked and like, now I'm 25. But I say that, and then I come here and I think of the version of me that came here last time, and I just think like, this last year has been the year of confidence. This last year has been the year where I've really, really grown into myself, and I'd have thought that would have happened like 22, 23, 20, but no, it had to be the 24th year turning 25. And I think it's in these moments where we are looking at ourselves so much, because I do look back at my 19-year-old self and, you know, I really did think I was going to be anxious forever. And I made a reel about it. And for some reason, I was watching it back on the bus over here, and it made me cry because I don't think I really comprehended how much I have changed my life, how much I have found myself a life that makes me happy, how much I've changed the way I deal with my own emotions, how much more of an understanding I have about me. And I think a big part of that was, you know, there's been many different things that have been at play. I think one of the biggest ones is getting an ADHD diagnosis. That changed everything. That changed everything. And I know people talk a lot about whether diagnoses are helpful and putting labels on things and stuff, but like, getting an ADHD diagnosis made me understand myself in a way that I've never understood myself before, because I just thought my brain was different. I just thought I just thought I was weirdly different and I couldn't explain it. And then all of a sudden I got this and I was able to understand myself better. And I was like, oh, this is why you struggle with this. I stopped putting so much pressure on myself. I really stopped blaming myself. I think I used to put a lot of pressure on myself and feel really bad when I failed. And I know I tell you guys to not put yourself up for failing, because failing is a normal part of life, but like I should probably listen more to my own advice. But there'd be like normal things that I would just find really hard, and that made me feel really like silly. I'd find it hard to keep my room tidy all of the time. Like, not just like, oh, she's messy. Like, I would actually find it hard. I'd find it hard to remember to send birthday cards. I'd find it hard to, you know, regulate my emotions and be able to convey how I felt. And it would be all of these things that, you know, in arguments I'd just cry because I felt so like overwhelmed by things and I didn't want to cry. And it was just like, I just felt like I didn't get myself. I just did not understand who I was and why I felt this way. But I just always knew I was a bit different. And for what ages, I just thought this was just part of life. And then getting that diagnosis made me feel so much more in control of the life that I'm living, because there'd be things that the way my brain functioned that made me feel not in control, that made me feel really like I didn't know myself whatsoever. And I think that can be... Oh my God, I'm just going to show you something really quick. Can you see the boats? And I think for a while not having that diagnosis did make me feel scared about myself, because, you know, that sounds dramatic, but in the way of like, I felt like I was never getting to know myself, and that there was this key thing that I didn't know, and I was never going to find out because nothing was changing. And then getting that diagnosis was that little key. It was the little thing that was actually like, oh, this is why you feel that way. And so that was a big thing that I think has changed over the last 5 years since when I last came here. But I think the other thing is that I've given myself so much more grace to understand things with. I think I thought I had to have everything figured out. I think we spend so much of our 20s putting pressure on ourselves to feel like we have to be at a certain point. We have to know where we're going and what we're doing. We have to know who we want to be. We have to know the careers that we want to try, or at least we have to decide that we're traveling. We have to decide that we're living this free flowing life. We have to, you know, we have to live everything purposefully, and there's this real push to have these purposeful careers and this purposeful life. And it's this flip side of like, well, when I decide that I'm just going to enjoy the moment, I feel like I saw this on Jaded Jade's reel, like I saw this earlier, and I thought like, that's so true. I've never really thought about it, that when I do decide to live more in the moment, I become less determined about my future. When I become really determined about my future, I do live less in the moment. It's about finding the interlocking, you know, balance between the two, and about finding where that kind of middle mark about this wanting your future and focusing on the future but wanting to be present, finding that like balance of it all. I think that's the thing that our 20s is for, in addition to, which is what I think that's one thing our 20s can be for. But to be honest, I think we focus so much on our 20s being for something that we forget, like, personally, I think it's so much more about working out who you are I think it's the chapter or the decade where we've got to spend time investing in ourselves and working out who we want to be and working out who we don't want to be. We've got to spend time trying new things. We've got to allow ourselves to get it wrong. Because I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to get it right first time, and I don't know why. I don't know why we think everyone else has got it right exactly first time. I don't know why why we think everyone else has not struggled and been confused. And I think it's because we see so many lives on social media and jobs online, and we see everyone and we can compare ourselves to everything. And then that makes us feel like we're not doing good enough. Well, I feel like this because I'm not doing good enough because they know themselves so well. But the truth is like, you don't know how someone feels behind a job title. You don't know how someone feels behind a vlog. With mine, you all do, because I'm a bit too honest. But you don't know. You don't know how things really fall together. You just know how people are perceiving them. You don't know. You just know how you're perceiving it. And so I think in these moments where we're faced with quite a lot of comparison about the lives that we've led, like this one for me has been a really big moment where I've looked at myself both like long term, this 6 year different, split up with my ex, I've got a new boyfriend, I've got new friends, I've lived in like 2 new cities since then. I've had new jobs. There's been so many different areas of my life that have changed. And now here I am and I'm thinking, you know what? I actually feel really happy with it. I feel really happy with the life I've created. I feel really happy with the person I'm growing into. And I feel really excited about these next couple of years because if anything the last 6 years have taught me, it's that everything is temporary. Nothing lasts forever, and that can be both a good and scary thing, but I think it makes us appreciate the moment. And in the bad moments, it makes us realize just hang on in there because this isn't going to be forever. This is not going to be forever because I used to think my anxiety would. I used to think I would always be an anxious, overthinking mess. I used to think that it was going to be the thing that defined me forever. And, a lot of therapy and a lot of working on myself and a lot of learning to love who I was, because I think at the bottom of all of that, the bottom of all of the anxious thinking and understanding who I wanted to be, I think at the bottom of it was really needing to love myself just that little bit more. Needing to accept that who I was enough, needing to accept that who I wanted to be was enough, needing to accept that the person I was growing into was a good person and that I wasn't going to be able to control everything, but I could control that. And I think the way that I am controlling that, I wish I could just go back and give her a little it's going to be okay. Hang on in there. These emotions aren't going to feel like this forever. You're going to feel happy. Anxiety isn't going to plague your life. You're going to learn to create a life that stops these feelings arising so constantly, and it is going to feel great. I think it's been a really healing summer for me, to be honest. I think I've healed a lot this year, and I'm very excited about what this next year holds. And I'm excited to think about, maybe I'll watch this podcast episode and it'll be in 6 years' time and I'll be 31 and I'll be like, God, she has so much left to go. There's so much more growing left to do, and I'm sure there is. But it's exciting to have these big milestones where we do look back, because I think, I've really started to ask myself a lot recently, who do I want to be? Who do I want to be? What is this person I want to become? Do I like this person I'm becoming? Do I like the things that I'm doing? And I started to make sure the answer to those questions is yes. And if it's not, then I'm changing. If it's not, then I'm pivoting. Because I think we're also scared of pivoting. We're also scared of committing to something and turning back because we think we have to go all in on something. But if something's not for you, it's not for you. Flip side of that, I do think we all have to remember that sometimes you have to stick at things. Okay? Not if it's not making you happy, but if it brings you joy and it's not immediately successful, stick at it. Because, it takes time to learn a skill. It takes time to learn out how you could be something. It takes time to develop the skill set that you want. That is such a side note. But I just feel like I've had quite a lot of messages recently about people I don't know, this sounds weird, but I'm going to say it anyway. Looking at my social media and being like, how can I get there? And I just think, post. But be prepared to post for a while and be prepared for things to be up and down and topsy-turvy. Be prepared to be confused by it, because that's how I've been for the last 4.5 years. And I think you have to realise it's a skill to learn. You can't give up too soon on any of your dreams because it's your dream. You can't just give up that easily. But I also think take your time in your 20s. We put so much pressure on ourselves to think we have to be doing something and to think we have to be so definitive in the lives that we're living. But, you're only ever one decision away for something completely different. And you have time to work out whether or not you want that decision to be something different. You have time to try new things. You have time to live different lifetimes. You have time to work out who you are. Because I think if we spend this decade working out who we want to be, working out at the core of my being, who am I? What do I want? What do I value? Who could I be? Then I think that would be a good use of it. I think if I look at myself age 30 and I think, you know what? really like the person I am, and I know at the core of my being, these things matter to me. I think that would be something I'd be really happy with. I think if you can know yourself in the first decade, then imagine going through all of life with that understanding, because all of your decisions would be based on really, truly how you feel. I think that's something really special. But anyway, on to the life update part of this podcast, because we've kind of gone straight in. I'm in Tisno for the festival. Let me show you. This is our balcony. Okay, guys, I kind of did mess it up. I did mess up. We were meant to be higher up with a better balcony, but for some reason I booked the wrong room. It's fine. It's a lovely room. The balcony is lovely. I can still see the sea. We are still really close to the sea. We are 5 minutes walk away from the resort. Like, everything is good. That is the only slight downfall, but it's fine. Zadar was beautiful. 10 out of 10 would recommend. Way preferred it to Split. Split was not for me. This was way better. Like, it's quieter. The food options were great. We cooked quite a lot of the time because budgeting queens. But I think it's been a really lovely way to, like, kind of start the holiday. I feel like I'm having, like, multiple holidays in one, and I've extended my trip. And so now I'm going to be away for like ages, and I didn't pack for this, and also for the final week I don't have a suitcase, and so I don't really know what I'm going to pack, but that's okay. We're going to cross that bridge when we come to it. So first day we just explored around town. Second day we went to Preco. Beautiful, so beautiful. You take the ferry over. We walked up a giant big hill, 10k walk. I wore flip-flops. Shocking idea, wouldn't recommend. But the walk was lovely. Then went swimming, came back. A third day, swimming day. That was a lovely beach day. Another 10-kilometre walk, though. Don't know why me and Louie do this to ourselves. Don't know why I didn't wear sandals, wore flip-flops again. My feet are ruined. I think I've nearly ruined my sandals too, so that's really fun. Then third, fourth day, we'd kind of burnt ourselves out a little bit because for some reason we refused to take a bus or a taxi or anything, so we're trying to save money. Because we're away for so long, we were like, we need to budget this. And so we were just walking everywhere to make it cheaper, which did make it cheaper. We have effectively saved money, but wow, do my flip-flops feel like they're going to break. And then we just did shopping. I did a shopping day. There was a little sale. And then we had like a day where we just wandered around the old town, did like a few like touristy bits, just wandered around. Then the final day we just chilled. I can't lie. Like, I just wandered around, did a little bit of shopping, went out for some like breakfast, got a coffee. I don't even think we went out for breakfast. I think we cooked at home. I actually think we've eaten so many meals at home, and it's been great because going to different people's supermarket, different countries' because going to different countries' supermarkets and getting able to see like the food they eat every single day is so interesting. I love talking about food. Do you know the what you having for dinner conversation? I don't think that's boring in the slightest. But anyway, on to the question part of this week's podcast, because I need to go to the festival. Also, we got the raspberry absolute vodka. Lovely. Really lovely, can't deny it. It's great. So I need to show you my outfit first thing. This is what I'm wearing for the festival day one, okay? It's really cute. Anyway, so on to the question part of this week's podcast episode. And the first question is, actually, if you made it to this point, make sure you're following me on Instagram and on TikTok at @MelFromBella, just so we can stay more in touch, because then you get to see all of the little reels I post every single day, and I think you will like it. Okay, first question. What advice would you give to someone who always overthinks? Firstly, no, you're not going to feel like this forever. God, that sun is blinding. You're not going to feel this way forever. And I think when we feel big emotions, when we feel a lot of negativity, we can convince ourselves that it's going to be this way forever. But what I've realised, and I hope this podcast shows you, is that like time changes a lot of things, including the way we feel emotions. And I think one of the best things about my early 20s, they've shown me that I am able to deal with the emotions that I once found so hard, and I once found so tricky, and I once found so overwhelming. And so firstly, don't spiral about it. It's unlikely it's going to feel this way forever, because as you get older, you gain more perspective about your life. Okay, second question. We had a minor pause because I had some drinks and snacks. How to prepare for big life moments, like A-levels. I think it's knowing that you're ready. It's knowing that you work towards these things. It's knowing that you've put in the groundwork. It's knowing that sometimes you just have to give things a go. Sometimes you have to have a leap of faith. Sometimes you have to know that you're going to go all in. And in those moments where you are jumping all in, just like try and really appreciate it, because you're going to do those things like quite a few times, like not many times. And I think that's something that it's a moment like to soak it all in. It's when you move somewhere new. It's when you start a new job. It's when that new period won't last forever. And so try and not weirdly enjoy it, but like, see it for what it is. It's a thing that is not going to last forever. At some point, it will just become your new normal. And I think then we get used to it, and then it's not something we appreciate anymore. And so go into it with this acknowledgement that it's something exciting, it's something different, and it's not going to last forever, and at some point it'll be on your normal, but right now it's new and exciting, and kind of lean into that. I think this episode is a good kind of response to that one. All my friends are moving away for uni and I'm staying put for a gap year. Any advice? I would say have a real think about what you want to do this year. Are you saving to travel? Are you wanting to just stay at home? Are you wanting to work? Like, create a bucket list of things that you think you really want to do. Like, in your wildest dreams, what would you want to do with a year? And try and make sure you do at least one of them. You know, I did a gap year, but I didn't really do much with it. And I know it's because of COVID and everything, and I was saving money to move to London, so, like, I couldn't do much with it. But I kind of think, like, well, maybe I should have been travelling. Well, do you know, I had a year just to save money to move to London. Okay, maybe that worked because I did move to London and it worked out well. But I think, like, there are so few periods of your life where you have gap years, where you have a year just to do whatever you want to do. And so please try and think of a few things that you really want to do and make sure you do them, because as you get older, these periods of your life are likely going to become less and less. And so I just want you to soak it all in. How to cope and be okay with not currently working a job related to my uni degree. Advice/tips. I think we pick our uni degrees when we're so young. We pick them when we're 18. We have no idea really what we want to do. And then sometimes we come out of university and we're really shocked when, you know, things aren't actually what they seem, when we don't actually want to do what we thought we wanted to do. And we also, sorry, I'm just going to put this on my blog. You know, we pick our university courses so young. We are so young when we decide what we want to do, and then all of a sudden we leave university and we're into the big wide world, and we think we have to do what we trained so long to do because we've invested so much time. There's this thing called the sunken cost fallacy, and it's the idea that just because you're in a sinking ship doesn't mean you have to drown with the sinking ship. Okay, you don't have to go down just because you've been working on it for so long. You don't have to keep going. You're allowed to change your mind. You're allowed to change your idea of what you wanted. You're allowed to become a different person. You're just allowed to do so much more. There's the freedom of choice, and you don't have to limit yourself. And I think, you know, university, it's not only a course, it's an experience. You meet different people, you're exposed to different types of lifestyles, you're exposed to different types of people and lives and jobs, and you learn so much more about it. So it's no wonder that when you start university and you pick your course, you might change your mind. Because university didn't just teach you how to study for a certain thing, it also taught you so many life skills. But the truth is, I also think you learn a lot on job. You learn a lot as you go, you learn a lot from the real world, and so it's no wonder that sometimes we end up in things we do absolutely not study for. But I think if you look in the grand scheme of things, university is such a small percentage. So if you're in something that makes you happy, then please don't beat yourself up about it. But please also remember, like, everything teaches us something. Everything teaches us something. And I think university teaches us something, but jobs teach us things. And every single role that I've had has taught me something. You know, I was working in a cafe and I did a degree in medical microbiology and a master's in the control of infectious diseases. I didn't use either of them. Even in my corporate consulting job, I didn't really use my master's, you know. I spent so long studying these different things and I didn't really end up using the 3 years of labs that I did. But those 3 years of labs taught me transferable skill sets, just like my job taught me transferable skill sets. And I think that's what we forget, you know. Sometimes it's not just about that specific thing. It's all of the other things that job, that experience, that degree, that thing that we completed us let us learn. And so I know it's easy to beat ourselves up when we don't end up on this path that we thought we always wanted. But the truth is like, you were so young when you picked. And now you're allowed to make new decisions. It's not a bad thing. And that was our final question for today. Thank you for listening. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and on TikTok @MelFromBella. And I can't wait to speak to you next week. I love you. Bye.